Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissat, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Thank you so much for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it very, very much. And as always, glad to get updates on what's happening through and with the parish. The best person to do that with Chris Pulaski. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Chris, of course, Terrebonne Parish Planning and Zoning Director. And Chris, we've been talking about these issues from the hurricane for a long time, but there's a lot of things still going on and what we have to think about as it relates to FEMA kind of still being present. And a lot of those things are kind of related to housing.
Right. Housing continues to be one of the main concerns and main issues that the parish is dealing with. And I think it's on par with what's happened in previous storms. From what we've learned, we've had a lot of advice and recommendations that are from our neighbors in Lake Charles area from Hurricane Laura. And so that's been real beneficial. But, we still see there are people still in need for FEMA's direct housing program. They do have several group sites that they have either in operation or under construction. Mm-hmm. FEMA has one group site in the Bayou Blue area off of Gage Court that's been in operation for a couple of months now. Mm-hmm. They have a second group site that they're wrapping up construction on over the next couple of weeks. That's in Schriever, across from St. Bridget Church,
right
on the Park Avenue side.
Right.
But it's accessed off of Water Plant Road. Mm-hmm. So that's a FEMA group site. They have a third group site that they're considering down at the end of Shrimpers Row in Dulac. Mm-hmm. But we're really just kind of getting started with that one.
Right.
And then the state, of course, still has their Rebecca Village site that's over there at 311 and Highway 90.
Yeah, and again, you see the volume of people in different places, and yet there's still need for more people to have housing addressed.
I mean, those sites are group sites, so those are for folks who were renters or perhaps they lived in one of the Homa Housing Authority properties like the High Rise or Senator Circle, or it's, like I said, folks who lived in apartments or rental houses. It's people who don't have access to property where they could have a FEMA trailer placed on. There are also folks who still are getting FEMA trailers placed on private properties. We still, to this day, have FEMA personnel embedded in our office. Mm-hmm. We have a FEMA inspector out in the field, so they handle all of those direct housing permits, which is crucial because, we're still 10 months out, and we're nearing 13,000 permits in our building permit office. Now, 13,000. That's a little over 6 times our normal annual average. And that's been in just the past 10 months. So that's a good indicator of how much we have going on. We're talking everything from new construction, right, new residential, new commercial, certainly all the repairs and renovations that have been done. But there's still, like I said, new construction, whether it's new construction for residential because people need housing from the storm, or we're talking new construction or things like people still, business is going on, business continues, construction continues, swimming pools are still getting put in place.
Right.
You've got all that kind of stuff happening too. Mm-hmm. So it has been a very, stressful and burdensome time on the parish. And, certainly my hat's off to my staff in my department. They've been really bending over backwards and doing a great job getting those permits out as quickly as we can. We're still working through a backlog, but we've brought in outside help to assist with that, and that's been a big step. But, even when we get 30, 40 permits out in a day, when we have 25 or 30 that are coming in,
right.
It's the numbers go down, but it's not like it's this huge drop. It's like a little bit every week.
Right. And it's the dedicated staff, like you said, they've really been focused on getting those out. And it's a process. It's not about red tape. It's about following the process because it needs to be done right.
Exactly. We want to make sure certainly that everybody's building safely. We want to make sure it's done correctly into code so that, God forbid we have another event, that that new construction or those additions or repairs don't just come apart and we're back to where we started. And then possibly that debris from a structure could go on and damage, surrounding properties. That's, another concern that we have about that.
Right, and I know Clay and his team are working very hard at removing that, and he mentioned that there's a number of people that are working towards getting that cleaned up, and they just need to call his office about that debris pickup. We certainly want to make sure that any storms that are coming, that we're debris free to the best of our ability.
That's right, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but Clay, they have done a great job of debris removal, and I know that they also are spearheading the demolition program.
Right.
So if anybody, this is for private property,
Right.
Residential properties, if they have debris that needs cleanup or a structure that needs demolishing, they can go to the parish's website at tpcg.org, and there's a link on the homepage where they can register for that program, and then they'll be contacted by those folks who administer it and get them on the list.
Right. Well, I know it's a lot to consider, but we always appreciate you and your team and what y'all are doing to get us ready. Talking about housing is a specific issue that we're dealing with as it relates to permits and all the hard work that's being done with that. But additionally, we're talking about so many people, some 10,000 plus in trailers, not counting those the people that are in trailers through insurance or their own private property doing that themselves. And so it makes a difference with trying to get everybody safe as we look at some recovery planning.
Yeah, I know that Earl Hughes, the director of our Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, he and his team, we're in constant contact with FEMA and the state, their temporary housing programs, because we need to know where these people are, how many people, so that Earl and his team can be prepared if there's a mandatory evacuation or any named event out in the Gulf, that those people can be make sure that they're kept safe, that they have either a place to go with family or friends, or if not, they can get registered so that they can be taken to the temporary shelters if there's an evacuation. So they're ready to go with that. I know Earl and his folks have been working for a while on that one. So I commend them and the state and the FEMA for helping out with that.
Right, and just making sure, I know for us in home health and hospice, we need to make sure that we're communicating all bedridden patients on a registry.
Right.
Because we need to make sure we have a plan for them. And in doing so, I got a buddy of mine who's doing some contract work in helping make sure that all of those temporary homes and temporary housing are all strapped down well enough to handle, to the best of our ability, some tropical storm or hurricane.
Sure.
winds.
I mean, they want to make sure, okay, getting the people out is priority.
Right.
And like you mentioned, we need to know if they have special needs, maybe they're on oxygen, or there's all those kinds of questions that need to be asked so that they know in advance so they can be prepared. But once the people are out, then it's securing those units so that if the wind picks up, that they don't get blown around, blown over, blown across the street. I mean, there could be any number of things. So I know the state and I think FEMA has already been strapping theirs
Right.
down, but the state had brought on some additional contractors to go back out. And I don't even think they have to even go inside the unit. It's strictly something that they do outside, so
Right.
that occupant doesn't need to be bothered by setting up a time when everybody can be there.
Right.
It's strictly just they go down and they secure the foundation and get it set. And then that way too, the units are kept safe and kept in place. We don't want the units getting hooked up to the back of a truck and hauled off with the evacuee either. They need to, remain in place where they're hooked up and ready to go.
Right. And again, we're continuously trying to figure this out. This is uncharted waters, if you will, having that many people who are living in temporary housing and trying to make sure that we're finding best ways to shelter them if they don't have private places to go. So it creates a number. Earl has mentioned it a couple of times. It creates some scheduling issues.
Yeah, it's logistics. I mean,
Right.
it's a ballet of moving people around and making sure everybody's present and accounted for. I mean, they've come a long way. They use a lot of technology. Everybody gets wristbands,
Right.
and so they can keep track of where people are. Certainly, they want to make sure families are kept together and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a major endeavor.
Yeah. Any other recovery planning that we're looking at or looking forward to for this hurricane season?
Definitely. So, recovery planning, at least from our side, my department and a lot of the other departments, I mean, we're looking at things, parish-wide. We have some large-scale recovery projects that we're looking at. We got major infrastructure that needs to be repaired. We got the power plant, to
right.
name one. We're looking at other hazard mitigation type projects like possibly a new courthouse building because the courthouse, we've got courts that need to be kept in session to keep the right to a speedy trial happening. You got the clerk of court who needs to remain in operation. Look, if you can't record documents with the clerk of court, you can't buy, sell property, you can't close on loans. I mean, business shuts down, and we had that happening right after the storm. So we need to address that. And then we have documents that need to be kept secure and
Sure.
safe and preserved. So there's all these things that come into play. So we're looking at parish-wide projects, but we're also going to be going out to the various communities within Terrebonne Parish to find out specifically what their needs and concerns are. We have a pretty general idea of what they might be, but we still want to know.
Sure.
And so rather than we will have community meetings in Homa and in other major areas, but we're going to take our show on the road. We're going to bring it to the communities. The concerns that Gibson, Bayou Black, and Donner might have are going to be different than Montague, Pointe-aux-Chenes, right?
Right.
But then some of it would be parish-wide, and then, of course, part of that will also include a portion of our recovery planning efforts for the Main Street, downtown Homa area, which really a healthy, vibrant downtown brings in people, brings in business that then is good for all Terrebonne Parish residents.
What's happening with downtown? I'm so excited as a long-time resident, never left Homa. Homa's been my home my entire life. It's exciting to hear about the options that we have for the revitalization of downtown Homa.
Right. I mean, our recovery planning efforts encompass a number of different things. So the way I've sort of packaged it in my mind is we're doing like this is like a volume set.
Okay.
So our recovery planning will consist of our hazard mitigation plan, which Jennifer Gerbasi and her team have already started that update even before Ida came along.
Right.
We have our comprehensive master plan for Terrebonne Parish, which was due for an update. We have our downtown or our Main Street corridor master plan
Right.
that we were planning on doing after that demonstration day
Correct.
deal back in
Correct.
2019.
Right.
And then we have our recovery plan itself. So those four encompass really and truly what Terrebonne Parish's recovery planning efforts will be. So when I mentioned in the last segment, we're going to be taking this out into the community on the road show. We will be making some presentations to talk generally about where we think our vulnerabilities are, where our strong points are, so that we can then solicit input and talk specifically about certain things from those residents. But to respect everybody's time, we don't want to end up with planning fatigue. So we want to get as much mileage out of these meetings as we can. So the input that we get and comments that we get will be used and applied to all four of those planning efforts. Now, naturally, the meeting in Homa will spend a large part of time talking about the Main Street Master Plan, but we'll be doing that at some level in all of the communities.
Right.
But we want to reserve the largest block of time in those meetings for discussions that are specific to that community. And people can look to see those meetings happening throughout the month of August and into September. Downtown-wise, I know that's on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, and I'm very excited about that aspect of it as well. I mean, so much so, the last time we did a comprehensive master plan, downtown had its own chapter. Well, now downtown's going to have its own plan.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
So I think I've mentioned when I've been on before, we've expanded the study for the Main Street Corridor Master Plan. We're going to begin looking at that from beginning at Polk Street all the way down to Grand Caillou Road.
Right.
And I say Main Street Corridor, but that's Park Avenue as well.
Right, exactly. It's both sides.
And then you have to consider some of what's happening along the edges too. I mean, while it may not necessarily be part of the corridor itself, even something 2, 3, 4 blocks away, if it's a big enough draw and needs to be taken into account, we will.
Right.
And so, in talking with President Dove, I mean, we've brought in a consultant to help us with all of our recovery planning efforts. They're called CSRS. They have several offices, but their main office, or at least one of them, is in Baton Rouge. And the parish has been working with them for the last few months on the planning recovery, but they've actually been working in Terrebonne Parish for the last few years with the state on the resettlement project. They were the lead consultant on that.
Right.
So they're very familiar with Terrebonne Parish. In fact, one of the project managers was a former senior planner for Terrebonne Parish.
Oh, okay. Wow. Keeping it.
Yeah, so they know what's going on. But we also have the ability to bring in sub-consultants to talk, or who have specific experience, and that's what we're looking to be able to do with the master plan efforts.
Okay.
But right now, you can go out on Main Street and you can see what's starting to happen now. I mean,
The changes.
the bandstands under construction. They
Right.
poured the slab last week.
Right.
So we hope to have that ready to go for the Bicentennial Festival. Next week they will be, the bid packages are due back for the Rotary Centennial Plaza project on Belanger Street.
Belanger, right.
So hopefully those will go along well, and we'll be able to break ground on that real soon.
And so those are some wonderful things looking forward. And if people are interested in some of the things looking back, there's all the bicentennial celebrations each month. One that's going to take place here that we're going to be able to talk a lot about what to expect from all of the history that goes with our bicentennial celebration. And they have been very well received and such great historical data.
That's right. I mean, tonight at the Civic Center is the environment presentation. And then next month in August is education, back to school.
Right.
So there'll be the education topic will be discussed. But, we have a discussion or topic every month. But on Saturday, October 15th, is the festival where all that culminates. I mean, there'll still be presentations made after the festival.
Right.
So what people will see, So what people see at the festival will be sort of teasers about those presentations.
About what's coming next.
But the Saturday, October 15th, there'll be lots of activities. It's from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. It'll be downtown around the courthouse square. There'll be a parade from Town Hall to the courthouse square. The parade, right now, it's planned to roll at 2 o'clock. We'll see what the weather decides to do. Hopefully, October is pretty dry.
Beautiful, cool weather for that.
We'll see. Yeah, hope so. But the festival's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have music, fun activities. I mean, we're talking about bringing back some old school contests. I think everybody's going to get a big kick out of it. It'll be a lot of fun.
Well, some great updates, Chris. We appreciate it very much. Thanks for kind of walking us through all of the different planning everywhere in the parish and looking back at the bicentennial celebration.
Sure.
Some really good information. All right, we appreciate it. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local program here on HTV.